Shalom, first and foremost, I want to give all glory, honor, and praises to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostle elders, a great millstone who rule well. And salutations to all you brothers out there pushing this word in love, truth, sincerity, and humility. Once again, it's the brother Shatia from the Chicago camp coming back to you with what I hope is another quick and edifying sit down. And the Lord just recently blessed me beyond measure to be able to go to Europe again. And in this instance, it was Portugal. And what you see before you is Castillo de São Jorge, or the Castle of St. George, or St. George's Castle. Nonetheless, this was a magnificent piece of architecture. I did a little bit of research on it. Not that I don't already know, but I just had to brush up just so I could be correct when I say this. But most of your literature, your books, and even on the internet usually date this castle from being completely constructed and occupied by people around the 700s or early 800s. And I was just completely wooed when I saw this place because, you got to think about it. Let's say it was finished being built and humans were in it literally at 800 AD. This castle is literally 1,220 years old. And see, according to history, so cleverly crafted by our enemy, they would have you to believe that they were ruling at this time and they built these structures when it was the complete opposite. I did a video a while back and I entitled it, and I might entitle this video the same thing. Sorry, bad Uncle Esau, this was not you. Okay? Because as I said before, this structure dates back to about the 700s and the 800s. And we all know that this was the time of the Dark Ages. Now, when you read books, the dates vary a little bit, but they're roughly around the same time. Some say the Dark Ages started around 300 or 350 AD to 1300, 1350 AD. It's off by a little bit, but the point still remains that during this time period, the Edomites were not in rulership. Okay, and even the Bible preaches and prophesies of a time where Israelites would be ruling. Okay, and let me go to the scripture to prove that. I'm going to put this on pause because there's other pictures that I don't necessarily want to show, and a few faces I don't want people to see, but nonetheless, just bear with me for a brief moment, and I'll be back with Revelation, the 20th chapter. Okay, this is Revelation 20:1, and it says, "And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having a key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold of the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years, and cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled, and after that he must be loosed a little season. Okay? Now, this is preaching of the Dark Ages, a time where Jake was ruling, okay, and drove the nation of Edom into the caves and forests in the lands in Europe. Okay, and even such a thing was predicted way before the book of Revelation. When you go to uh what was that, Genesis, when the blessing was being passed out, it lets you know that Jake will be ruling over Esau until a certain point. But this also proves that Jake will be ruling for a certain time. Genesis 27 and Genesis 27 and 39. And it says, and Isaac, his father, answered and said unto him, behold, I'm going to go Genesis 27 and 38. And Esau said unto his father, hast thou but one blessing? My father, bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth and of the dew of heaven from above. And by the sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. Right. And we all know that dominion did not take place until the time of the Renaissance, which is pretty much the start of or the 1400s, pretty much going into the 1500s. That's when bad Uncle Esau started uh, uh, rising back to power and gaining that foothold. But before then, the Edomites were not in rulership. It was Jake. So that castle that you just saw, that was not built by the Edomites. That was built by us. Because according to many of these movies and shows that bad Uncle Esau will show you, they were the ones ruling at this time. They were the ones that had all these traditions and customs and this great architecture, and that's not true. History, with its different literature and photos of artifacts, especially if you have a chance to go see it in person, clearly lets you know that they were not ruling at the time. And to show you a quick artifact, now this wasn't in Portugal, this was when I went to Ireland. Okay. Uh, there's an icon that I want to show that just further proves the point that during this time, the Edomites were not ruling. And put this on pause and find it for you. All right. Now, I did an old video where I had shown this, but this was a image. This was a stone sculpture in the bottom of a church in Dublin, Ireland. And it was called the King's Treasure. Like, it was this uh, stone sculpture along with many other things down in the basement. And according to the woman, Okay, it was a popular king, very famous. Well, she didn't know his name or where he was from, but he dedicated all this treasure to this church. Now, this church was built in, it was finished being built in the, I want to say, 1200s. Okay, and as we mentioned earlier uh, in the sit down, that in the 1200s, Jake was still ruling. Okay, and as you can see from this icon, you have the image of two Jake men of nobility. We zoom in. You can look at their faces and clearly see the big eyes, and even though it's chopped off, the big nose and the big lips, and his counterpart, his face was even more destroyed. All right. And not only that, they have the symbol of the lion and the unicorn, which is still used today. When you see what's the dude's name? Boris Yeltsin, he still uses this symbol to today, and we all know that Edomites don't use the symbol of the lion. The lion is the symbol of Israelites, not Esau Edom. Okay? Further proving that during this time, from 300 to 350 to 1300 to 1350, this was not you, bad Uncle Esau. The castles, these different icons, all these things that were built during this time, it was not you. It was us. See, and see, this is the reason why this guy fights so hard to cover this stuff up, because it's so incriminating. And to prove that, let's go to the book of Maccabees, and we might grab another scripture and close it on out, but bear with me for one moment. I have to pause. This is First Maccabees 3 and 46. It says, "Wherefore the Israelites assembled themselves together and came to Maspha over against Jerusalem. And Maspha was the place where they prayed aforetime in Israel. Then they fasted that day and put on sackcloth and cast ashes upon their heads and rent their clothes and laid open the book of the law," this Bible, "wherein the heathen had sought to paint the likeness of their images." This is why this man fights so hard to cover up the truth, because he can't have the whole world knowing that during the time of that castle and that icon that I just showed you, that it was, as they say, niggas ruling, niggas building, designing, drawing, designing clothes, building roads, having sewers and bathrooms, and great hygiene practices. They can't have you know that we were teaching them how to do these things, not the other way around. And now, thanks to the internet and brothers doing videos, this truth is now being declared, and this guy is being found out for the liar that he truly is. Second Ezra 6 and 27. And it says, "For evil shall be put out, and deceit shall be quenched. As for faith, it shall flourish. Corruption shall be overcome, and the truth which had been so long without fruit shall be declared." And that fruit is that during the time of 300, 350 to 1300, 1350, Jake was ruling. So-called Negroes were ruling in Europe. You had some Northern Kingdom over there too, obviously, but the majority of the people over in Europe was what we call so-called Negroes, and that is the truth. That is the truth of the whole matter. That during this time, Negroes was ruling, and they were doing stuff like this. And I'm gonna put it on pause and find it for you. They don't want you to know Jake was doing stuff like this. This is still St. George's Castle. It's just from the back view of it. All right. And it goes all the way around the top of this hill. And see, another thing with this internet, the cat can't be put back in the bag now. So every day that goes by, people are finding out that these structures, these icons, all these things, all these achievements and inventions and buildings and other things, all these things created at this time in history were not created about you. They were not created by you, I should say. This is the work of Israelite men. So uh, I got a few more sit downs that I have that I got coming from my trip to Portugal. But nonetheless, I hope you all were edified. And until the next time, we're going to say Shalom.